according to your website, a 2019 review paper found that Wi-Fi radiation impacts the male reproductive system. Analysis of sperm following exposure to Wi-Fi found degenerative changes, reduced testosterone level, increased apoptotic cells, and DNA damage. EMF research also points to decrease in reproductive capacity, apoptotic cell death caused by electromagnetic radiation exposures, induces reactive oxygen species production and DNA damage in human sperm, effect of mobile phones on sperm quality, ovarian apoptotic cell death, and fecundity decrease induced by non-ionizing radiation. You might also be interested in your extensive articles on how your cell phone may be killing your sperm and how cell phones cause female infertility. Can you tell us more about all of this?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the areas where the science is incredibly clear. For instance, with the cancer thing, it's because there is a long latency period with the cancer. It's rather difficult to prove. It takes a long time. Just like with the nuclear incidents that we have, it's not like immediately that people get cancer. It takes years, sometimes decades. Whereas with this reproductive side, with the science that's been done on this, notably with regard to men, then it is really very clear. And there are hundreds of studies which have been done on this also. And it's very clear that cell phone radiation impact. I know when we say cell phone radiation, we're talking about microwave radio frequency radiation. So we're not really just talking about cell phones. We're talking about Bluetooth, smart, everything wireless. If somebody says wireless to you, think radio frequency, microwave radiation. And what the science is saying is that these exposures reduce sperm quality, reduce the sperm count, reduce sperm motility, reduce sperm morphology. So they impacting sperm profoundly. And obviously, this is particularly concerning for the future of humanity, quite simply. And then we have other studies on the female reproductive system. Now, there are less studies on this, but in my view, it is an even bigger concern because us guys, we can create sperm, into our 70s, 80s, or more, and that's what we're designed to do. Whereas women, girls are born with eggs, and once those eggs are radiated, that's it. You've had your lot. And that is the problem with regard to, as I see it, that is the problem with regard to these exposures for women. And when we think of how men and women carry their phones in their pockets, and so this is why this is a particular concern. So hundreds of studies on the male issue, and this particular problem with regard to women. This is one of the most important aspects of this whole EMF question. And I've not really said what EMF is yet. So for people that don't know, we'll just say what it is. I keep using this term and it's perhaps not clear. But when I say EMF, I mean electromagnetic fields. Some people mean electromagnetic frequencies, others say electromagnetic radiation. But we're talking about these man-made frequencies, which all these devices are using. So yeah, the science is disturbingly clear on this whole reproductive question with regard to men particularly, and with regard to women, less clear, but perhaps more worrying.
Your website has a section that says studies on how EMFs impact on our children. In 1996, Professor Gandhi from Utah University was the first to publish a study showing that children are more exposed, that children are more exposed to radio frequency radiation than adults. His research showed that 5-year-old and 10-year-old children have higher absorption rates than adults because their skulls and bones are thinner, their brains and bodies contain more fluid, so they naturally absorb more cell phone radiation than adults. Other research shows a 10-year-old child absorbs 153% more cell phone radiation than an adult. Research links EMF exposures to autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and asthma. You might also be interested in my article on why children are more at risk from cell phone radiation. Can you tell us more about EMFs and children?
So this is why I started all of this, Ben, actually, because I'm a father. And this thing, I was affected by these EMFs. Like I said, I thought I was going crazy because it was like the beginning of the internet, of the reliable internet place where you could go and get, I mean, it's increasingly difficult today for different reasons, notably censorship. But there wasn't information about at the time. And I had this information because I'd experienced what was going on firsthand. I'd had this, I'd experienced these very debilitating symptoms from my cell phone and from these devices. And as a father, that was what shocked me the most, was when I was seeing small children using cell phones and knowing what the science said. And the science is some of what you've just related. The Gandhi study, which was done in the 1990s, which showed that quite simply children are more vulnerable. Children are more vulnerable, way more vulnerable to these exposures than adults. And small children are way more vulnerable than big children. And we have one of the images in the Gandhi study is of a 5-year-old brain, a 10-year-old brain, and an adult, which has been exposed to the same cell phone radiation. And you can see through these heat maps just how much more a 10-year-old is impacted than an adult, and how much more a 5-year-old is impacted more than a 10-year-old. And, you know, that expression, what is it? A picture tells 1,000 stories, or what is it? Something like that. 1,000 words, I think it is. Well, that is exactly it. That is exactly it. This is how these frequencies are impacting our children. And I just find this deeply upsetting that that there are people that know this, that the science is out there, and that we're not doing something about it, and that we're not telling people. And people are telling people, not just people, you know, like the American Association of Pediatrics have put out reports on this, and different bodies and different scientists have, you know, the 2015 scientific appeal headed by Dr. Martin Blank. That was one of his motivations also, or their motivations for doing this, which was signed by something like over 200 scientists and researchers at the time, and medical doctors. So, you know, experts are speaking out about this, and yet it continues. And yet we continue to sell cell phones. You know, parents continue to allow children to use cell phones. And because they don't know, but they don't know because they're not being told, because this is not mainstream news, unfortunately. And yet, you know, the study which Gandhi did in the 1990s, it was reproduced in 2012, same conclusions, reproduced in 2015, same conclusions. I mean, come on. This is our kids we're talking about. How long can this go on? This really just steps over the line for me, in terms of, okay, if you want to use a cell phone, you want to take those risks, okay, but don't mess with our kids.